On today's starting nine, Snake and Carl break down the Wildcard Series round with playoffs set to begin this Friday, but not before celebrating Aaron Judge's historic season. After 62, we introduce the four series starting tomorrow, then get into a deep dive on all 8 teams, and then we bring in a couple familiar Barstool faces. The one and only Rico Bosco for the sharpest action, and of course Lord Clem for Mets fan psychology. It's the best time of the year. We got a great starting nine for you, so let's get into it. Action! And welcome back to Starting Nine, the Wild Card Series preview episode, a loaded episode. Very excited to be here. Carl in Chicago, Snake in Texas, and I got to say, I always comment on the apparel, usually because it's sleeveless. You're coming off a nice pump, vascularity. Got to let the people who aren't watching on YouTube know.
Let them know.
But I'm drawing attention. The Doors shirt today rips, brother.
Isn't it a great shirt? Yeah, it's got the sleeves that kind of roll up a little bit. It's old school. It's like a vintage shirt. I got it from like John Varvatos in 2014. I actually bought 3 of them, because when you find something you like, you kind of load up. It's like you got to have a bunch of white t-shirts, gray and black. It's just staples of the wardrobe. This is no different. Wear this one a lot. Wear it to work out, wear it, taking the kids to school. I'll wear it anywhere. Wear it to dinner, and it's been washed about 1,000 times. And a great band.
Just plays.
Yeah, it plays. Yeah, and one of the songs that I play quite a bit for the kids that they like is "People Are Strange" by the Doors, and they're kind of getting into like the old school rock. Yeah. So,
what Dad likes, they like. That's the house I grew up in.
A little bit. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I developed my musical taste from my parents. They used to like open the windows, and my dad was always big into like having the best speaker system in the living room. And I remember we'd be swimming and grilling, and we'd have just classic rock just blaring all weekend long. So yeah, my musical taste definitely came from my parents. I think kids nowadays are a little bit different because a lot of the music that they hear is from like Instagram or TikTok or Snapchat. So it's a little bit different, but I try and implement like what I listen to in their repertoire, because every room in the house has speakers. So I'll like throw on a different kind of music usually every morning while we're having breakfast, just to kind of expose them to some new stuff, and they like most of it. Yeah.
Appreciate it. Well, we have a huge show. As I said in the intro, we're going to be joined by Rico for gambling. And then Clem is going to come in too. Rico sticks around for like this awesome Mets Roundtable, and we're gonna get into some wild card series previews. Obviously, Judge, but I am curious before we do all this. How was your first experience? You were like submerged deep into like the Barstool guy banter there.
No, it's great. I'm used to seeing it, like watching clips and just the passion that is put on display. You can tell just how much they love their teams, and it just kind of gives you an insight to the fanatics that are out there and how much they support their boys and live and die with each game, each pitch, and now even more so than ever with the postseason. And they're a little upset, but again, they're in the postseason. It sucks that they have to play the wild card series and have that short turnaround going into the division series. But as I mentioned before, it makes it that much sweeter if you get through the wild card series and you're able to somehow get past the Dodgers. It gives you like just a tremendous sense of, hey, like we earned this. We're gonna. It's not an easy road ahead of us, but if you make it all the way through, it feels that much sweeter to have to. Knowing you got past the 3-game set, short turnaround, beat the Dodgers, so on and so forth. So, but you're in the dance. You're in the dance.
Oh, yeah.
And what did Rico say? Like you can't take home the prom queen if you don't go to the dance.
Amen.
It's a fact.
So stick around for that. We're going to get to that, which, again, that's very – and I say this in, like, this long-winded intro. It's cool for me because I've been doing so much work with Rico and Clem over the years, snake drafts and red lines and trips and streams and stuff. So now to be in a position to know, like, at the end of the day, like, our favorite thing is our baseball teams. You want to get Clem going, ask about the Mets. You want to get Rico going, ask about baseball. So then now finally, years later, being in a position where we could sit down, getting ready for playoffs, that was one of my favorite segments we've done on this show. So that's coming up in a bit, as I keep saying. All right, so let us get into some news, though. But before we do, a word from our friends at Game Time. Game Time's the exclusive ticketing partner of Barstool Sports. Created by fans, for fans, it's a new ticketing app that makes it easier than ever to score last-minute deals on tickets to sports, concerts, and shows. And they guarantee the lowest price. If you haven't given Game Time a shot yet, what are you waiting for? Tons of Barstool fans are using it and hitting us up on social, telling us about the great deals they're getting. And we've been using Game Time all year. I went to the Lumineers concert, just balled out a little bit in Miami. I was using Game Time left and right to hit up the concerts, the shows, just hanging out with the boys, getting the lowest deals all the time because Game Time guarantees the lowest price. And it's so easy to use. Amazing deals. I promise you guys are going to love it. All you have to do to get a piece of the action is download the Game Time app. You go to the account tab to create a login and redeem code STARTING9 for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply, but you got to log in and create an account in order to find out how cheap these tickets are. And I'm telling you guys, they're pretty cheap, especially when you redeem code STARTING9 for $20 off your first purchase. All you got to do is download Game Time, go to the account tab, create a login, and next thing you know, you got last-minute tickets. I'm telling you guys, download Game Time, last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Thank you, Game Time. Okay, Aaron Judge, 62 home runs, amazing achievement. A lot of people are saying that Jesus Tinoco grooved him one.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to say that in the situation where he hits 62. Guys miss all the time. I missed a lot with mistakes. Most of the times they miss the mistakes. Sometimes they get them. I'm glad he did. Getting down to the wire, there were concerns and questions like, is he going to get it? Is he not? He finally did, with not much time to spare. But it couldn't happen to a better guy. You just listen to like his comments. And his high praise of, his friends and his family for their support, his teammates, and, how he's saying it's not. Obviously, he's the one out there hitting the homers and having such a historic season, maybe the best ever by an offensive player. But how he, how he talked about all the people involved, his coaching staff, his teammates. And without all them, he's probably not in position to do what he did. So, just a good human being, and you can't speak highly enough about him and how much he deserves it. He's put in the time, and it's paid off. So it's gonna bode very well for him in free agency, especially if he has. And I know we're going to talk about it, but if he's able to perform at the level or near the level that he has during the regular season in the postseason, I mean, that price tag is only going to go up.
Oh, dude, the free agent sweepstakes for Aaron Judge, we already perceive to be huge. But to your point, a historic run this October, he can go then compete, in my opinion, with like what Shohei Ohtani's price tag is going to be. Now, it probably will miss out at the end of the day. I'm saying compete. Like he could be, you see him get $46.5 million or just something absolutely preposterous if he goes on fire. Maybe it's a $50 million contract. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it could be. I guess the only question is the length of the contract. How many years is a team willing to sign him for? Because teams get scared of that, the last 3-4 years of a long-term deal, rightfully so, because usually guys start to slow down once they get to, 35, 36 years old. But a guy of his stature seems like he'll be able to, it goes both ways. Like, can he carry it on more because he's got the mass, he's got the size. There's might not be as much wear and tear as it would be on a smaller guy. But then again, you could also say that size goes against him just because of how big he is. But he's hitting free agency at a great time, and I mean he's got age on his side. It's not just obviously the numbers he's put up; it's crazy. That obviously bodes very well for him, but also he's going to be 31 as he hits free agency. I think it's very possible he could get, an 8 to 10 year deal, even though some teams definitely won't want to give him that length. But that could very well be what it takes to sign him in free agency.
Yeah, injury concerns to me are down after playing 148 and 157 games in back-to-back seasons where, there was a time there, 2018, 2019, into COVID where, there were questions about how durable Judge is. It seems like, I don't know how that works. I know there's a lot of factors at play. I don't know exactly how it works, what the specific formula is for Aaron Judge and why he's able to play, more games these last 2 seasons. I think as a selling point of Aaron Judge, it's the fact that, he made himself healthy enough to be in the situation, and this is what you get now because of that. The most important statistic for anybody in the big leagues is games played. You have to be available. I love Justin Turner talked about that in an interview with us. So to me, everything is working in his favor. It's not like he has to upsell a down year. It's not like that's even in his recent history. He's really coming in this in the best possible circumstances on the best platform, bye week, coming in the ALDS like we'll talk about. And yeah, he can put on he could easily add to what is already one of the best pre-free agency resumes you could ask for in baseball history. Yeah.
Yeah, and also there could be more teams inclined to sign him because you can use him as a DH. You can kind of give him a little bit of rest when he needs it. Maintain his legs a little bit, get him a few at-bats without having to run him out to the field every day. And that's a big deal. I think that – there's only a few teams that could really afford him. At least that's what analysts or, the experts will say. I think that the number of teams that can afford him are much larger than most people think. But again, I think there's only a handful of teams that would be willing to shell out a contract of this magnitude.
The Dodgers have the money in the payroll. That's no joke either. So I don't want to go down this path. I just put it out there the Dodgers have it. So keep your eyes peeled, Aaron Judge. Big season. I say over $50 million AAV. Big offseason, I say, or big postseason.
I do too. It'll be interesting to see, they get very creative with these contract structures. You could see a bunch of deferred money like we've seen in the past. But the Dodgers are a team that, aren't scared of paying luxury tax. And man, to get a guy like that, I'll pay the extra taxes. Let's go. Get the man in the uniform.
Right. Luxury tax bullshit.
Yeah, so what?
MLB playoffs. Congratulations, Aaron Judge. If I didn't say that, congratulations. Echo everything. We said this last episode. Guy's so sweet. I need to sit here and talk about how sweet Aaron Judge is. And I'm not even at the point where we're going to talk about him playing as a Cub or whatever. Just I'm excited to see how this October goes, knowing that, like I said, best resume you could ask for going into free agency, and he can add to that. That's great. I don't think it can get worse. If he has a bad series or whatever, whatever. It's just he's been hot. I do want to talk about the playoffs, so obviously. I kind of talked at length or around this a couple episodes. I'm going to succinctly explain this again. We have a new playoff format for the 2022 MLB season. There are 4 total rounds. The first round starts this Friday. It is the Wildcard series. It will then be followed traditionally by a division series, a league champion series, and a World Series. The formats are 3 games to 0 for the Wildcard series, meaning all 3 games would be hosted by the home team. And then we're still traditional classics, 2-2-1 for the NLDS, 2-3-2 for NLCS in the World Series. The Yankees will play the winner of the Guardians versus the Rays. The Astros will play the winner of the Blue Jays versus the Mariners. The Braves will play the winner of the Cardinals versus the Phillies. And the Dodgers will play the winner of the Mets versus Padres. These 4 series will be played on Friday, Saturday, Sunday concurrently. There will be no travel. There will be 4 games on Friday, 4 games on Saturday, and if necessary, up to 4 games on Sunday. Just as by and large, we'll get into this later. This is like March Madness. I don't even know how I feel right now. There's so much important baseball stacked one on top of each other. It's as good as it's been at any time going into a playoff.
Yeah, you're right. It really is, and I think it's a huge deal that all 3 of the wild card games are played. At the home team site. Crowds play a big factor. But I did mention before, with a lot of guys, they don't really care about the crowd noise. and it can fuel a visiting player just as much as a home player. But I do think that you would have to lean on the side of the advantage being with the home team. I mean, obviously, but I don't think it doesn't play as big of a part as you would think. There is an advantage there, but it's not astronomical by any means.
Yeah, like the players aren't going to be nervous, so to say, or like, oh man, it's really loud out there. Like, it's just fucking loud. Like,
yeah, I mean, it gets your fucking juices going. And we talked about how wild the Rogers Center is going to be, and it could be the loudest of any stadium.
Yeah, so we have some really cool storylines, high level from here, and you bring up the Blue Jays. So let's start here with the Blue Jays Rays. What I'd like to do is just kind of give some paint pictures here of kind of what these 4 series look like and some of the bigger storylines, and then we'll spend some time on each team, and then we'll bring in the boys and kind of maybe pick some series and talk a little bit more about the fan psychology aspect of it. But just starting off, you bring up the Blue Jays, and to me this is great because Mariners are coming in here, first appearance in 20 years. Against Blue Jays, Canada's national baseball team. The crowd's insane. The Maple Leafs always suck. Like, these people are just crave postseason success. They never get it. And some of the best young players are going to be playing in the series in the playoffs. You've got J-Rod, you've got Gilbert, Kirby, Vlad, Bo, Manoah. Just a stable of studs under 25 years old. And then you mix in like an Alejandro Kirk, who's a phenomenal catcher for the Blue Jays. A lot of these young guys who could have big October moments. Blue Jays versus Mariners. This one's heavily, not heavily, but slight favor to the Blue Jays. We're going to kind of get into series picks and predictions later. But for now, I'm just kind of like, what jumps out to you about this matchup?
Well, I love the Blue Jays offense. I really do. A lot of firepower in there. I love Springer. A ton of postseason experience. Young superstars. But then, and I like the Blue Jays pitching. I do. I think the Gausman blister is a slight concern for me. I don't know the status and how severe that is. I know he had issues his last start, and they're probably just being conservative. They want to make sure he has enough time to get that right and be ready to go. I love Manoah game 1. But I do think that I think Seattle's pitching can neutralize that offense, especially Luis Castillo, and what he's going to be showcasing. He's going to be throwing 101 miles per hour, I'm sure, to start that game. He's got extremely nasty shit, but I do agree with you. I think the Blue Jays have the slight edge in this series. I think it goes 3, though.
Yeah. I'm going to pivot here. Why don't we just spend the time now on the teams? I'll introduce the series. We'll give high-level stuff because I don't want to get into, like, Guardians-Rays now. This is how I thought I was going to do it. But now I don't want to pivot into, like, Guardians-Rays high-level. I'm ready to talk deep Blue Jays-Mariners here for a minute if you want. Because,
yeah,
I mean,
sure.
I'm curious who's going to catch Kevin Gausman because Kirk has been catching Manoah. It seems like that's the matchup. And then they've got Danny Jansen who's coming in and going, DH catcher. They've kind of been splitting that up. This isn't like a major storyline anyone's talking about. They do have like a for sure 1-to-1 for game 1, Manoah and Kirk behind the plate. But I don't know what the battery looks like for games 2 and game 3. And I think that's going to be more important than people are talking about.
Well, who do they like more behind the dish?
I think Jansen's. I think Jansen to me is a better catcher.
I would say that. I mean, I don't necessarily know the relationship with Gausman and Jansen. Maybe he's a better guy back there because of Gausman's split and being able to kind of controlling. Guys taking second base, taking third base on balls in the dirt, a little bit quicker on his feet. I mean, that's going to play a huge part in the postseason. I mean, if you can get an extra 90 feet, on a ball in the dirt, here and there, that could easily lead to runs. Instead of a guy having to hit a double, to bring a guy in, guy gets a second base on a ball in the dirt. That's a huge deal. It's magnified by a lot at this time of year, and then it's not the same It's not the same turf they used to have, but the ball's gonna skip a lot more. The potential for swinging third strikes, guys end up on first base. So yeah, I mean that makes sense, and you're right. I think Jansen is definitely a little bit better of a defender than Kirk. Not to say Kirk's not a good catcher, but I think he gets the edge there.
But I think I can say with a lot of confidence that Kirk will be catching Game 1 because of the relationship with Manoah. He's been catching Manoah's. I would be surprised if they got to Game 1 of the wild card series, even though Kirk's caught Manoah. I don't want to say he's caught every start. I just went back and looked for like the last 8 starts or whatever, and Kirk's been with Manoah every single one. So I would be surprised if I was Manoah. I'd be like, yo, come on, guys. And again, this is a guy who doesn't use pitch comm. This is one of those old school guys. I just feel like he would tell anybody in the – like if the front office came down and they're like, hey, we looked at the numbers and we want Danny to catch Manoah. Like that would be grounds for Manoah to take a bat to a water cooler. Like, I'm telling you who I'm pitching to. If you're going to give me the ball in Game 1, I'm telling you who's catching.
Yeah, I mean, everybody would be shocked if Kirk wasn't there behind the plate with Manoah Game 1. Yeah, I mean that's going to happen. It'd be ridiculous to switch it up. That won't happen.
From a lineup standpoint, George Springer's just completely slept on. He's got 19 home runs in his career in the postseason, over 63 games and a near 900 OPS. A lot of that damage, I just think all of the damage is done with the Astros. Obviously, he's great, and people know him as a extremely talented toolsy center fielder. I don't know if he has a reputation for a bad boy in October, but he certainly deserves one. And you talk about the lineup, I think Bo Bichette comes to mind and Vlad Guerrero, but there's just a reason why I don't know why George Springer hasn't latched on to me. Is like when I think of the Blue Jays lineup, the first guy I think of should be George Springer at this time of the year based on what he's done.
Yeah, this time of year, for sure. Well, I think I don't know if he's overshadowed, but there's some young stars in that lineup that probably get mentioned first. And Springer he's second all time in leadoff homers. Is that correct?
I believe so.
Yeah. So,
a
guy that definitely shouldn't be overlooked. But there's a lot of thump in there. Obviously, like the first name that probably comes up is Vlad Jr. For good reason. I feel like he's ready to have a big postseason. And, playing.
Would you care that he's been their worst hitter since September 1st? Would you him and Biggio have been their 2 worst hitters since September 1st? I don't mean they've been.
Yeah, it's probably a little
when
concerning.
You stack them. Okay.
Yeah, I mean that's probably a little concerning, but then you can kind of say the same thing for Bryce in Philly. Like he's been pretty bad in September. I think things change though in October. I definitely think things change. What's done is done. These guys are winners. They're gonna be ready to go. And it wouldn't concern me much. I'm sure it does with some of the fans in Toronto, rightfully so. I mean, you can only go off what they've done for you lately. But hey, it's
whatever.
Slate is wiped clean.
Yeah. Same goes for Mariners. Digging into the Mariners here. It looks like Castillo, Robbie Ray will be pitching games 1, game 2. Robbie Ray making a return to Toronto. The question, though, is Logan Gilbert or George Kirby?
Numbers are fairly similar. I mean, they both got, Gilbert's got a 3.2. Kirby's got a 3.39. I mean, I like them both a lot. For me, it's a coin flip. I mean, what do you like there?
I like Gilbert as a starter.
Yeah, you can bring the other one in out of the pen.
But then
if you need. Piggyback them.
Now, they're so similar to me as like young, nasty, filthy, hard to hit righties.
Yeah.
That I'm just going to what I see when I've watched these guys pitch from a composure and a mound presence standpoint. And I don't know if Mariners fans would agree with me. I know they're both impressive on that front, but to me, like Logan Gilbert stands out in a crowd of young, impressive pitchers as being a guy who just like doesn't really give a shit. I would say Gilbert. I think Gilbert's got a more proven body of work, and then if you could use Kirby. But you don't want to be taking George Kirby then and throwing him in a situation where it's like a 1-run game in the 6th inning just because it's a 3-game series and he doesn't start in game 4. Like, I think with Kirby, it's like unless somebody gets hurt, you have these relievers. You have a whole stable of guys that have been coming in and pitching in tight jams and stuff. So if they do go Logan Gilbert for Game 3 and then it's turned around, like, I'm not saying that means George Kirby should be available right away in Game 1 or 2. I think it's more of like an emergency circumstance thing. And as we talk about later with the schedule, the ALDS it's right there after this. So not a lot of off days. If you do go that Game 3, maybe just keep George Kirby. Maybe keep him off the roster. That's crazy. You got to keep him on the roster.
Yeah, you can't do that.
You got to keep him on the roster.
I mean,
somebody gets hurt on a mound or something, and
yeah. I mean, whichever guy you use, I mean, you're going to have the other one ready to go right away. But you're right. That doesn't mean you just bring him in because you got him available.
Right. Now, obviously, first playoff appearance, 20 years. People love that for him. Damn shame that the home crowd doesn't get a guaranteed game, that they got to go win this so they can see him. But two things I very much like about the Mariners going into the series. Their best players over the last 2 months have been J-Rod and Cal Raleigh, the two youngest guys on the team, the catcher and the center fielder. Cal Raleigh's been electric. This guy pops. Thunderous power. But, yeah, now around that, the fact you have the two youngest guys on your team have been playing at the top of their game throughout the year down the stretch here. Now you listen to some of these dogs the Mariners have. Listen to these dogs. They're barking. Eugenio Suarez, Carlos Santana, Mitch Haniger, Jesse Winker, Adam Frazier, Ty France, J.P. Crawford, guys that have been like – those are guys that just show up and they're like, I'm good enough. Let's get a good team together and go out and win baseball games. Like, those are just solid veteran baseball guys that have all played different ways to find themselves on this Mariners team. It's almost got a little bit of that, like, major league vibe. Like, how the fuck did you get
That's
here?
A good
like,
point.
Oh, I was traded here, and here.
Yeah, I mean, don't sleep on J.P. Crawford. I mean, Eugenio Suarez, you're right. I mean, he can go deep at any moment. I like Jesse Winker a lot. Haniger, Santana is just he's a big leaguer, man. He's a salty vet. I mean, he loves the game of baseball. I mean, he can do it from both sides of the plate. Adam Frazier, I think he's underperformed a little bit. I mean, but didn't he like almost win a batting title, or he won a batting title a couple years ago? The guy can really, really hit. And you're right, Cal Raleigh has been outstanding, and I just think this is a stage that a young player like Julio Rodriguez is ready for as a rookie, and he's just going to add to his resume. That's just going to continue to grow and grow over the next few years, and he's going to be one of the best players in this game for a long time. So Seattle's a scary team. Seattle is a scary team, even though I think that. And I think you probably agree with me, Blue Jays have a slight edge. That doesn't mean the Mariners are not capable of winning the series.
So if this is like a boxing match, I think that the Blue Jays have bigger muscles and they throw harder punches, and you're just like, yeah, that's just impressive. Like, you look like a fighter. You got the thunder behind the punch and all that stuff. And then the Mariners are showing up, and it's like, wow, you have been beaten up so many times, and like you learn some new moves and shit. Like, you're ready to go fight a new – like, it's just the Blue Jays lineup, it just looks better. But to me, the Mariners have more grit, and, like, those guys are just – like I said, they're dogs. Like, those names I read off, Ty France is a dog. He has been dying to be featured as, like, a starting first baseman for 8 years as a professional baseball player. Like, all right, now you get a chance, Ty. Here's another guarantee for you. Omaha Steaks – there's no better partner for MLB playoffs. I can't wait to have some Omaha Steaks.
Oh, man, me too. I'm going to fire up the pan right now.
From tailgate parties to busy weeknights, the flavor experts at Omaha Steaks have made it easy to savor all the flavors of fall with their mouth-watering assortments of perfectly aged steaks, ultra-juicy burgers, and easy-to-prepare comfort meals that are ready in a flash. I could read the rest of this ad copy, or I could tell you about the time I came into the Barstool Chicago office and I had a box of Omaha Steaks waiting for me that they had sent. We're like, hey, you're going to be doing some ad reads for us. please try the product. And I am telling you, it is the single greatest product endorsement I've ever received in my life. I have crushed every single piece of food these people have given me. It is fresh. It is delicious. They say juicy burgers. They need a word for more than juicy. I don't know what it is. Whatever juicy is in French, that's what they need to start saying. À la Jose. It's like, that's how juicy these fucking burgers are. Now I'm getting worked up. I shouldn't have said the F word, but we're rolling. And when I'm rolling on Omaha steaks, I'm feeling good about myself, but that's because they're the world's best beef, naturally aged for the ultimate in tenderness, juiciness, and flavor. Snake, you don't get looking like that. You don't have all that protein, muscle mass without laying on quality meat. You know meat better than anybody I know.
I know meat well, and man, for all you vegans and vegetarians, I'm very, very sorry that you've chose to live that lifestyle. But red meat will always be here for you. So if you're looking to get back on the right track, look no further than Omaha Steaks. They'll take care of you.
And right now, you guys can take advantage of a 50% off site-wide by shopping their semi-annual sale. It only happens twice a year. That's why it's called semi-annual. And it's on now with 50% off delicious customer favorites. And when you use promo code STARTING9 at checkout, you take out an additional $30 off your order. So that's 50%, then a little 30 on the bottom on that. Don't wait. Go to omahasteaks.com, enter starting9 at checkout, and stock up on on all their fall flavors today. That's code starting9 at checkout for an extra $30 off your order. Minimum order may be required. Go to omahasteaks.com to figure out what that means. 50% off, then an extra 30. Okay, we have 3 more series matchups. We're going to get to the boys. God, I love Omaha Steaks. Having a break up a show to talk about Omaha Steaks is I know we're out of the ad read, but I just have to say it's like a
well, yeah, and I haven't eaten yet, so
special feeling.
I'm getting hungry.
Machine, we got to get that machine fed. All right, let's stay in the American League. Guardians and Rays. I'm going to tee this one up casually as just saying battle of small balls, 14th and 11th respectively in home runs. Pitching staffs are very dominant, but they kind of do it in different ways. And to me, 2 of the best managers in the playoffs, Tito Francona, who's much better known than Kevin Cash on a national landscape. But what Kevin Cash has done with the Rays cannot be understated. He does a magnificent job interfacing with the front office and putting guys in different positions and bringing that culture together. I love this matchup because I think these are the 2 most similar teams playing each other. Maybe Cardinals, Phillies, but I think these 2 are the most similar. And in Cleveland, I'm like obsessed with the Guardians in the playoffs now that the playoffs.
Yeah. In Cleveland's a big deal. I mentioned that Tampa's 35 and 45 on the road. There's different things that kind of equal out because I love Tampa's pitching. I really like their arms. I love Glasnow, McClanahan. It's just those guys aren't going to be phased, by being on the road. But then you've got Bieber, McKenzie, Quantrill. It's very tough. You're right, though. It's small ball. It's the ability to pitch. A big knock in a big situation off an electric arm is probably what it's going to come down to. I think this is probably one of the closest series we're going to see. I think it goes 3 all day. Any way you look at it, I think that I think Cleveland can do enough to get by, either McClanahan or dude, it's tough. It's really tough. I don't know. Who do you like in this one?
I mean, I personally love the Guardians because I've just been like in the numbers over the last couple of days trying to figure out trying to have some intelligent discussion when the time comes. And the more I'm like looking at the Guardians, they steal a lot of bags, and you're going to need someone to steal a bag in October. It's just a fact.
No doubt about it.
There's going to be these times when 2 outs, runner on first base, 6-inning tie game. All right, go get second base, kid. And then
they have the most bags in baseball. I mean,
I think they're
119.
Third. I think they're third.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's up there. That's a lot more than most teams.
They're number 1 in strikeouts against. They're number 1 in contact rate. They're number 1 in swinging strike percentage. And when you get to October, it feels like these games, you'll see the 13, 14 strikeouts. Everybody's all juiced up, jacked up.
Yeah.
And so the Guardians lineup is well prepared for these moments and situations.
It's a playoff. It's a playoff roster for sure. Built to handle that, and you can't overstate how important. Look, there's not a lot of stolen bases anymore, really in baseball. But the time where bags are more necessary than ever is October, and that'll be interesting to see, like how well that plays, for the Guardians, because you get guys on base with a single here and there. I mean, it turns it into a double real quick, and it puts a lot more pressure on the guy on the mound. And that's when you get a guy on the mound who's worried about his time to the plate and maybe misses, and he gets popped like that. It's a big fucking deal. So watch out for the Guardians to put pressure, on Tampa on the bases, because I don't think Glasnow is very quick to the plate. McClanahan being left-handed probably doesn't play as much there. I mean, they'll go first move, but he throws 100 miles an hour. They're going to take their chances, though. I mean, you have to. When you get guys on base against arms like that, you got to go for it.
Another reason I like the Guardians here is they have such a deep and balanced bullpen that Francona's been using masterfully all season. It's so deep that my understanding from some rumors and stuff is that, like, Shaw may not even be on the playoff roster or be one of the first guys up, where, like, that's just, you say Cleveland Indians bullpen, you think Brian Shaw coming in and throwing a scoreless eighth. So I know that they're very confident in the back and the bullpen, how balanced they are. This is also the only wild card series matchup we can say right now with, like, near certainty of what the pitching matchups are going to be. So like you said, it's going to be Bieber versus McClanahan game 1, then Tristan McKenzie versus Tyler Glasnow game 2, and then Cal Quantrill versus Drew Rasmussen game 3. And so just kind of going down this, obviously we know Bieber, his profile, velocity's a tick down, but command's as good as ever, breaking stuff sharp, has been relying on the curveball as much as anything. McClanahan, in the top 3 for a Cy Young, and just an absolute filthy bad boy, stud, lefty, nasty boy. Tyler Glasnow just pitched 4 innings and 62 pitches. His last time out, he had struggled in the first inning, then kind of settled down and grew for 3 innings. So Kevin Cash was saying, hey, we're feeling very good about Tyler Glasnow coming this. Tristan McKenzie's been on fire down the stretch.
He's been unbelievable.
Fire.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's only given up 138 hits and 191 in the third innings.
And if it was 185, we'd be sitting here going 185 and 190 innings is good. Can you say that stat again?
138 hits and 191 innings. It's hard to do as a starter. I mean, you would, if you just looked at those numbers, you'd be like, well, that's Bieber stats. Bieber's good too. 172 hits and 200 innings. And yeah, as you mentioned, maybe velo's a tick down, commands the ball well. He's slightly deceptive. You don't pick up the ball until late, and he's got electric off-speed stuff. So that's not going to phase him at all. And it's pretty evident by the way he's been able to pitch for him.
Another thing I very much like about the Indians, the Guardians, is, I think Jose Ramirez is as good as anybody in baseball. I think Jose Ramirez is in a tier 1 where you're like, if I had to start a team, and if we did a fantasy draft and there's 12 teams and I'm snaking, I'm in the 10, 11, 12 slot, I have no problem. What Jose Ramirez is able to do in the middle of that lineup, because they basically just ask him, we have one elite hitter in this lineup that can hit for power and take a bag and do everything you can ask. And then they kind of piece everything around Jose Ramirez. I mean, it's just so incredible. I don't know if that gets said enough.
No, I don't think it does. And he probably doesn't get as much love as he should. Maybe it's because of the market. They're in the Central. He's talked about a little bit, but not near as much as he would be as if he was on a bigger market team. But you're right. The guy with, almost 30 homers, 125 RBIs, and he's going to steal bases. Really, really impressive to see the combination of average, speed, power. He can play defense. He is a great player. And just like, I don't know who was talking about it, but talking about how he's got short arms and the ability for guys with short arms, to get to the inside pitch really well, handle velocity in. And it's very evident that he's more than capable of doing that. It's almost kind of like Jock Peterson, how well they can get the barrel to the ball that close to him. And I don't know if people realize how difficult that is to hit 97 kind of on the black or off the plate in, get the barrel to it, and still keep it fair. And Jose Ramirez is one of the best I've ever seen at doing that.
I just looked at a picture of him. I'll never see him with like regular arms again because now you bring it up, like his arms, they like hit his, they like hair barely hanging like his waist. It's incredible.
Little gator arms. It's very incredible. Conducive for good bat speed though.
Ultimately, at the end of the day, it's guys like Steve Kwan and Ahmed Rosario and
the supporting cast.
Yeah, guys that just get these chances and they're rolling in there. Nobody's nervous on the Guardians at all. Like they have as much confidence. I feel like they're coming in and be like, this is a coming out party for a lot of us that have just like shut everybody up and it really didn't take until the White Sox were like mathematically eliminated for the rest of the baseball world to be like, damn, the Guardians, damn, like that really did just happen.
Yeah, because it was kind of a lackluster division, pretty much all season. And we weren't sure, are the White Sox going to win the division? The Twins? I mean, it looked like the Twins were going to take that division up until, like the beginning of September or so?
Yeah. Buxton, Correa.
And the Guardians said, bye-bye Minnesota.
I have nothing more on the American League. Between those four teams, if I had to pick one that could make a run in the World Series or make a run in the bigger picture of the playoffs, I'm just coming back to the Guardians again because if they get out of the wild card, then they're matched up with the Yankees.
Yeah.
And they basically neutralize a ton of the Yankees' strengths.
It's a dangerous series for the Yankees.
Strike you out, and they're trying to.
I mean, it's dangerous regardless of either team they play. I think it's out. I think of all the matchups, I think the Yankees have probably the most difficult one in the DS.
And I do think that the Guardians are the best suited out of all American League teams to beat the Astros in a 7-game series.
I agree with you
there, too. You can't out-talent the Astros lineup. Like, I don't think you can't, if you're like, oh, well, the Yankees have a good lineup too. Like, the Astros lineup's just better. Like, they're better, and they're just – so you have to do other things elite. Like, you have to play elite defense, and you have to have an elite bullpen and elite base running. Go on and on. Now, nationally, we talk about teams that do everything well, good base running. I'm going to just pick these guys out. I'm not trying to be mean, but I don't know if there's two worse base running teams in the playoffs than the Phillies and the Cardinals, and they're playing each other. I'm not trying to be disrespectful. It's just everybody pianos. We're talking about guys like, these guys carrying luggage around the bases.
Yeah, it's a logjam. More so the Cardinals than the Phillies, for a couple reasons, but – we know Yachty's not stealing bags. Pujols saying he's not going anywhere. I mean, if he hits the ball over the fence, you could, you don't really have to. But I think with the Phillies, maybe the starting pitching isn't as much of a concern, I guess, with the Phillies because you got Nola, you've got Wheeler. I think the difference maker for the Phillies pitching wise is going to be Zach Eflin. I really do. Yeah, I mean, he came in instead of Robertson or a couple of the other guys to kind of win that game for him and get him to this wild card spot, which is that's where the concern came up for me. I mean, the lack of faith in some of their other guys there. I mean, because historically, the bullpen in Philly's been pretty rough.
Yeah, I think that's where the Eflin, appeal starts coming in, as if they're looking for flashes. I do feel bad that they're this late. I mean, when I say this late, regular season's over for the Phillies, and you're going to St. Louis with the biggest question mark at like you can't have a bigger question mark at closer than being like maybe this guy. I don't know, or maybe not to talk too much about the Dodgers, but like comparatively, where they say like Kimbrel, you're not going to close, but you're going to come in these late situations. Like I don't know, but in conversely, because it's new territory for Eflin, he could just rock. He could just come in there with like fresh canvas, fresh whatever. I'm going in here to do my job and shut these boys down. Dude, the Phillies, I do think the Phillies have a major advantage with starting pitching. Maybe not as much as the Mets do against the Padres, but the 1-2 punch of Zach Wheeler and Aaron Nola. Aaron Nola had a legendary year, by the way. To me, is much stronger.
No
than
surprise.
The Cardinals.
He's just built for it. Just another guy. He's just not fazed by anything. He's kind of his demeanor on the mound is, I would say, very reminiscent of like Kyle Hendricks. Whether he punches out the side or gives up 4 or 5 runs, you would never know. I mean, he's just out there going about his business and gets the job done. You can't speak highly enough of his preparation too. I mean, he's going to be ready to go. He's been waiting for this moment for a long time, and I know there's been opportunities for the Phillies to get to this position in years past, recent years, and they've kind of fallen short. I was a part of a couple of those teams. They've been waiting for this moment for a long time, and you have a lot of guys in that clubhouse that are hungry for this moment, with new additions, guys like Schwarber, who 49 homers or 47 homers, something like that. So, what is it? Let's see, 46 homers. So they've got some firepower too, but Cardinals are battle tested, a lot of veteran leadership, some really good young players, but the concern is their starting pitching. So, I might have to give a slight edge to the Phillies here.
The concern with the Cardinals starting pitching is, to me, after digging in and getting the mind wrapped around, is much bigger than I would have thought. Like, I just naturally assumed that, of course, Wainwright would be pitching the first or the second game. The pulse around the Cardinals is absolutely not. Last 6 starts, I think he's pitched to a 7-something ERA, and he's been magnificent throughout the course of the entire season, just looking at the body of the work. But now it's at the time where you're coming in here, and they don't really have that clear number one stud. Now, it would be Jack Flaherty. He's made 8 starts this year, 3 in June, now 5 here towards the end of the year. Last 2 were quality starts. He's got the best stuff on the team, some of the best stuff in the National League when he's healthy. Now, for Cardinals fans, I'm not one, obviously, but the pulse around Flaherty is like, been hurt. Don't know if we like his presence and the attitude. And I don't know this guy from fucking Adam. I'm just saying this is what the kind of Cardinal attitude is like. Well, if we're in between a Jack Flaherty who's only made 8 starts and is still trying to figure it out, and an Adam Wainwright who's struggling badly, say over his last couple of starts, give us Wainwright, give us Waino. And opposite that, they're saying Quintana should be starting game 1. Jose Quintana. Now, a lot of people who aren't paying attention might be rolling their eyes like, no fucking way. Yes. He's surrendered 3 earned in his last 5 starts. He's been magnificent. So how do you shelve him? But at the same time, how do you look at the fan base, look at Albert Pujols? Hey, game 1, playoffs, your last year. And it's like I know I'm not just – it's just like we're running Jose Quintana out there against Zach Wheeler. That's such a difference.
Yeah, I mean, you can't get emotional about it, though. Like if you're saying, oh, you have to start Wainwright game 1. I mean, you really don't. He struggled a little bit. I mean, yes, it is Adam Wainwright. He's ready for these kind of moments. And, looking at the St. Louis, their starting pitching options, I mean, they have some options. It's not as clear cut and as easy to pencil in as it is, Wheeler and Nola. But Quintana's been good. Montgomery's been good. Mikolas he's had a really nice year too, and he knows how to pitch. So, but I don't love the matchup for Wainwright against the Phillies game 1.
And it's a different Cardinals pitching staff as you go through and you kind of look at what it seems like they might match up. Marmol had a press conference, their manager, and was just kind of talking through some of the difficulties in making these decisions, and not to say like it's a bad situation. It sounded more like his energy was like, I have a good problem on my hands because there's a lot of qualified pitchers here. Montgomery was very hot. He's kind of slowed a little bit, but that's more result-based, not stuff-based. It's not like they're seeing his velocity come down. Like everything still kind of looks the same. Like, all right, home runs are here. That's just the way the game is.
It's good and bad because you have options, but there's no bona fide decision. Like, you're not like, okay, this is our guy game 1, this is our guy game 2. We know that it's an easy decision. It's a little bit more difficult to come to a conclusion there. So it's a tough spot for him.
Also, tough spot for Cardinals. I don't want to do this to you guys, but I have to do it too. Paul Goldschmidt and Nolan Arenado both just put up their worst months of the year. They've combined for 4 homers and like a 225 average down the stretch. Meanwhile, Tyler O'Neill will not be in the playoff roster going through the outfield that the Cardinals are going to post. It's going to look a little bit different. So really, to me, this comes down to like our Pujols, Goldschmidt, Arenado going to thump for him. They're going to have to put up some good games, and Yachty doing his thing behind the dish. This to me is probably the most where I was saying like the Rays and Guardians are so comparative in like their small ball and how they try to win games and stuff with these, lack of power lineups. In the same respect, I do see a lot of similarities in how these teams can win baseball games and just, sending the big dicks to the plate and letting them unload.
Yeah, I mean, it's just fun to look at these matchups and try and decide like who has the advantage. It's hard. I'm no expert, but God, this is tough, man. I'm just still trying to figure out how any of these teams that come out of the wild card beat the next guy they got to face.
Someone's falling down. Someone will go.
At this.
One of those 4 teams is going to go. I think one of those 4 teams is just going to get plain out beat. Like I think we just have too much of this in our heads where like, well, they're so much better. Like, no, you get rolling in baseball, doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
You're right, and it's so much more difficult to predict like baseball than any other sport. I feel like because the better team can just get out pitched by what seems like an inferior team. And I agree with you. I do think one of the 4 teams that's already through to the ALDS or NLDS does go down. Which one? If I had to pick, I think it's the Yankees.
See, I like that. I do too.
I think it is.
And I'm not trying to disrespect your Silver Slugger, but the fact that you're the only guy to take Madison Bumgarner deep at the height of his October run, like you're the only guy to do it, and that is absolute one of the best postseason pitchers of all time. Just goes to show you how 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 there's all that stuff can happen.
You're right.
Like,
crazier things have happened. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're gonna wrap up here because before we get to the other boys, we're gonna put this playoff preview together, and then we're gonna jump in and make some picks and really kind of get into like who versus what and where we think value is. I do want to say I think that if you gave me these 8 teams, if you said here's the 4 teams from the American League, here's the 4 teams from the National League, and my task was to come up with the matchups that were the most interesting, I think we got it. I'm looking at this and saying I don't think I would change a single thing. I love that the fact that the Cardinals are playing the Phillies. I love that the Mets, like Yu Darvish, we're going to talk about how well he pitches against the Mets. These matchups here are as juicy and as sexy as possible. You've got the hungry dogs in the Mariners lineup and the young studs with the Blue Jays. Is Manoah going to go out and take that step so that we're walking around in 2023 being like absolute gangster, or is there still room to grow? We're going to spend a lot of time in the Mets and Padres in our next segment. Briefly, Manny Machado's
I'm with you though. I think the storylines are great. The matchups are very, very interesting. And I mean, there's so much on the line for all of these teams. Kind of the way it ended for the Mets, kind of being down, having an opportunity to close out the division, not being able to do that, like the chip on their shoulder. The superstars and the firepower, like you mentioned, the Blue Jays and the Mariners not being in for almost 2 decades or 2+ decades. How dangerous a team like Tampa or the Guardians can be on that side. A dangerous matchup for the Yankees, and then Philly, St. Louis. Pitching concerns in St. Louis. Not being there for quite a while. The Phillies, their potent offense, poses a good matchup for the Braves. Either way, Dodgers scary, Astros crazy scary. But the juice that you get kind of moving forward, getting past the wild card, definitely helps that team play up, no doubt.
Well said, big fella. You've been there.
Oh, felt like forever ago.
Does it really?
Yeah, it does.
But the memories, are they clear? I mean, I think they're weird, but...
Most of them are. I mean, a lot of it's a blur, but bits and pieces stand out, like the biggest moments, yeah. And some of the scariest moments, like the Rajai Davis home run, to tie the game. Very scary. Sit in the pen with Lackey just looking at each other like, no way we lose this one. But we didn't.
Just like...
Yeah.
What a moment.
Yeah. Wild.
All right, we're going to get to some fresh faces here with Starting Nine, but before, let's talk fresh face. We have a fresh partner. This is a very, very exciting partnership I get to announce with Starting Nine, and at a moment, I couldn't think of a better time and transition to bring this together because we talk about playoff experiences and stuff that stands out to you. And so, I have all these memories, obviously, as well from, I was loaded for a lot of it, but the memories are there. And one memory, Jake, is your beard. And, how big and thick and, when I say, when I'm watching highlights or if I'm rewatching the World Series games or something, as I've done recently, and it's and here comes Jake. The beard you had was so big, and we have a partnership. Beard Guyz. These are guys. It's literally called Beard Guyz, with a Z, I should say, because it's Beard Guyz. It's Beard Guyz. A comprehensive collection of beard care products for all types of facial hair and skin types. Cleanse, enhance, moisturize, and style. We've been working on this partnership. We say, you know what? A perfect time to announce this is going into October because it's beard season. You have what people would say is probably one of the most legendary sport beards in the last 10, 15, 20. Where does that? Did you ever get that beard insured?
No. I mean, even if I happen to run into a razor by accident, it grows back in about a month. I know it's tight. It's tightened up right now. It was for the TCU Hall of Fame ceremony, but I'm gonna grow it out probably for the next 2 months and get it nice and shiny, nicely conditioned. I miss it. I regret cutting it off, but it comes back so fast. But you got to take care of it. Have to take care of it.
Well, you're full. That's still what I'm looking at is full bodied. I mean, that's still great coverage, 100%. Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
You demand best. You demand some of the best products available to you when it comes to taking care of your badass beard. So there's a couple things. Best-selling products. These are Beard Guyz. If you're a beard guy in the audience, I'm growing the mustache too. I'm going to take this baby out, see what I can do with it. Our friends at Beard Guyz said they can help me out. But I've got the Wash and Tame 2-in-1 wash conditioner. I got the Beard Balm, which tames the facial hair while keeping it soft and smooth. Because a lot of people are like, I'll grow the facial hair, but it gets roughed. And then Beard Oil. We want to hydrate the skin. We want to reduce itch. It's packed with a blend of argan, avocado, coconut, grapeseed, sunflower, and jojoba oils, which is exotic. The jojoba oils. Beard Guyz. Pulling out the fucking jojobas for your beard. Craft your beard routine today at beardguyz.com. Go check out their stuff. We're going to have more product. We're going to have more stuff coming out with the Beard Guys, but this is actually a big partnership for Start at 9. So I want to thank Beard Guys for jumping on board with us at the right time, too. I'm sure I'll be reliving some great October moments looking at your beard, Jake. When I can't sleep at night, I'm going to go back, just put the throw the World Series DVD on. Just throw it on time and again. All right, like I said, I've been talking about bringing the boys in for a while. I'm very excited. We're going to start with Rico. We do Hot Ice every Tuesday and Thursday where we talk about gambling for like 20 minutes. I have a very close relationship with Rico. He's been an extremely good friend of mine since I've started working at Barstool. And there are few people that I work with that I enjoy talking baseball with as much as Rico. So let's get into some playoff odds with Rico, and then we're going to be joined by Lord Clem for some Mets Roundtable, get into that matchup. And like I said before, one of my favorite segments we've done on this show so far. Let's get the boys together.
You could give us 3 innings, by the way. Have you seen our bullpen, Jake?
Let me start, Rico.
I could roll out of bed. I could roll out of bed and give you 3.
We're in the gambling.
He's got to get.
It's too good, Rico.
He's got to get his intro.
Yeah, all right.
All right, here he is, gambling portion of today's Wildcard Series preview. Welcome to the show, legendary host of Hot Ice, Rico Bosco. Rico, welcome to the show, buddy.
Welcome. Yeah, I was, pull the curtain back a little bit. I just said, Jake, you could probably give the Mets 3 innings right now in our bullpen.
I told you, I could
him
roll
more than anybody.
I could roll out of bed and give you 3. I don't know if they'd be a great 3, but I'll get through it.
As my dad said, Trevor May has impeccable control. He can always hit the other guy's bat. So
he's a barrel finder.
Exactly.
Yeah, sometimes it happens. I don't know. He's a hell of a streamer, is from what I've heard, though. He's good at video games.
Oh, it's probably why he's not a good pitcher.
Hey, shout out Shit Knuckles. Okay, so let's get into some of these. We were talking heavy pick heavy preview and stuff. I obviously was blowing the Guardians because I think they're a tough matchup. But I think a good way to start here, just generally, are there teams in the Wild Card Series round, Rico, that jump out to you for World Series future value? Obviously, how good the Dodgers and the Astros are, but who do you think out of this pile of 8 teams has a chance to take it down?
I'd probably look at the 2 playing each other, which is tough because then you'd have to place both wagers. But it'd be the Mariners and Blue Jays. Now, with that said, I think the Astros, I said they were the strongest team coming into this thing since like May and June. They've been really, really good. Especially they spotted some games early and then just blew everybody out. But the Mariners and Blue Jays, in terms of true wild cards on that side, I do think would be the team I'd look at, other than obviously the big 4. Braves, Yankees, Astros, and Dodgers. So I think the winner of that Mariners-Blue Jays team, I think the Blue Jays have underperformed all year. They might have a little bit of a chip on their shoulder. On the National League side, it's tough to say, but when you look at what they've done and their bats and that home park being a bandbox where they could hit some homers, I know they would line up. I know the Cardinals have been really good, but the Central is a little overvalued. I'd take a look at the Phillies with that lineup. Maybe Harper starts to get going. Obviously, Schwarber's hitting bombs. They know the Braves well. If they do get past the Cardinals, they line up with the Braves. I like divisional teams who can sneak past each other. That's kind of things in all sports. NFL playoffs, you saw it with Carolina-Duke. Carolina's an 8 seed. They line up against Duke, a 1 seed in the NCAA tournament. Throw the record away. We know this team. We've played them twice already. The Phillies do know the Braves. I think the Phillies can be pesky. Those would be where I would look outside. But to answer your question in short, I do think it's pretty chalky in terms of the elite in MLB. I don't think we're getting an off-the-grid type World Series winner.
Okay. So small play, if anything, here.
Small play winner, yeah. I probably go the Blue Jays ahead of the Mariners, although I really do love this Mariners team, and then the Phillies small if I had to.
And so value-wise, it's important to point out here, Mariners are 28-1 to win the World Series, while the Blue Jays are 15-1. And I think that speaks more to just the home field advantage aspect of the 3-game wild card, because if you look at the Mariners pitching, they stack up very well against anybody. The Blue Jays, though, is going through their lineup beforehand. It's very easy to talk about the young studs on that team, Vlad Guerrero and Kirk and all that stuff. But as we said in the previews, George Springer is probably the most accomplished guy going out there in October. Like everybody in baseball. I mean, his numbers in the postseason are phenomenal. The track record's there. And I think it's just like quietly forgotten that he's hitting third in the middle of that lineup and is an absolute stud. So That obviously that's a great matchup. What do you think about the Padres? What do you make of them?
Underachieving all year. I've shit on them for a while. One of the best teams on paper. Tatis obviously doesn't come back. Soto, that acquisition, you were like, ooh, watch the Padres. They never really put it together. So it does fit perfectly as a Met fan that the Padres have kind of been underwhelming all year, and now this is when they explode on the Mets.
Does it? I don't know if it changes though. What would give you the inclination that it could change if they were so underwhelming kind of all season? I like you, Darvish. I like Snell. I like their arms, but it seems like enough sample size, from when that trade deadline happened. It's like, man, they didn't show me anything really.
Yeah, and Musgrove has been the arm you didn't mention. Musgrove has been fading a little. He's still solid, but he's been fading in the second half. He used to be automatic with his strikeouts overs. We were taking that all the time on hot ice. I guess it's one of those, you look at a playoff game like, what's going to change? It's going to be low scoring, you would think, right? And the Mets are down a big bat in Starling Marte. And let's face it, like for forever, the Mets don't score for DeGrom. So if we don't light up the scoreboard and the Padres can just hit one homer to stay in the game or have one inning of a guy gets on with a walk, double in the gap, he scored. Like, I just think in a short game, the Padres do have enough life in that lineup to scare the Mets. I really do. So, and that's, I guess, being a little bit of a pessimistic fan, but also calling it real. Like, we do have two studs. They got really good arms. I worry about our bullpen late. We don't score a lot. We put our best offensive efforts in 3 meaningless games here against the Nationals. Like, where was this Sunday against the Braves? So, shortened game, I worry about it a little bit that the Padres could come to life. And this might be one of those things, too, like, hey, we fucked around all year. Let's go make it. We do have the talent. Like, let's try to make a run at it. I think they might get a little invigorated, too. Everyone's kind of counting them out. Nobody's really talking about the Padres as a sleeper. So, it's a mindset thing. We'll see.
I got something on the Padres here. We talked about in the team previews and stuff that I want to bring to your attention now as we're kind of getting into, like, picking a winner here. Their bullpen, they've got so much talent. I just don't know who's trusted at the end. And so they're saying, like, yeah, they have a number of arms that they can run out there that are 96 left side. They've got tons of power stuff. It just, there's a lot of, like, we're not really sure which guy's going to show up. And I think that's just, like, if you look at their lineup, the infield solid, the outfield solid. Like, to me, the big question mark, and they have the talent. These guys are nasty. It's just like they don't have a stable of guys that have done it before or have been completely consistent down the stretch that you could feel good about. So something interesting to me was Manea. I can't say anybody's last name. That's just an old trick with me. But so his last two starts out, his last two outings, I think it's like 10 innings, 1 earned against the Dodgers and the Giants, and he said something clicked on his breaking stuff before his second to last outing, and the people close to the team are like, this guy's absolutely freaking nasty. Now, I don't think it's enough to bump the top 3, Snell, Musgrove, and Darvish off of the Wild Card Series rotation.
Well, he'll be using in the pen.
Yeah. For 3-4 innings at a time. And so something that could be a weakness is people sit around, they're like, they don't really have this and that. Manea shows up as a guy who can go give you 2, 3, 4 in a big moment in the series. Now it's a huge strength. I don't know.
Well, in a 3-game series, it's almost a must win the first game. You don't want to lose the first one. You definitely don't. You're at a tremendous disadvantage. So, yeah, you could absolutely see a guy like him come in a high leverage situation like we've talked about in the past. Like, when you need to get those huge outs with guys on base, you're going to do whatever you have to get that done. Because in a 3-game set, you can't plan ahead for the DS if you don't get past the wild card series. So you might see guys used in some unusual situations just to kind of bridge that gap and get to the latter part of your bullpen or whoever the other arms might be that you have available. So I think you're going to see some wild shit just to get the job done.
Well, to that point, though, on the flip side, Jake, do you see anybody getting a little wacky, right? So let's say, I'm not even going to say my team because I don't, but you talk about 2 studs. So let's say the Cardinals, right? Cardinals win game 1 in kind of convincing fashion. Do you think they move? I hate to save a guy. Do you think they move the third guy to game 2? Like, do you see somebody being like, "Hey, let's roll the dice here and try to set ourselves up for the DS"? Or is that just completely too risky? Oh, I guess the Mets are a perfect example. I should say that way because they have 2 aces, right? So DeGrom goes and gets you the win. Do you hold off Scherzer and put in Carrasco to say, all right, well, guess what? If we sweep in a short turnaround, now we got Scherzer lined up for game 1 against the Dodgers in a series where we are massive underdogs anyway. It's very few and far between because not a lot of teams have aces.
It's so hard to do that. I just look back at like a situation where. Not necessarily the same situation, but where the Orioles left Zach Britton in the bullpen, and then they ended up losing that. Was it a wild card game against the Blue Jays? It's like if you're gonna lose, you gotta lose with your best guys. I mean, Cookie Carrasco is not a bad arm though. I love him, but God, when you have Scherzer, I think you just have to get past the wild card and then kind of deal with the situation. In the DS after that. And look, some people might disagree with that, but if you get through it, then you'll kind of work things out to the best of your ability after that. So I find it really difficult to see Scherzer not throwing that game. Granted they win game 1. You never know. Buck could do something like that. It could happen.
It's a major risk reward, and the only reason I'm asking is because it's such a quick turnaround now. Like you're going Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then when would the DS start? Like Tuesday?
Is it Tuesday?
I think it's a pretty quick turnaround. I don't think it's from what I remember seeing on the schedule.
Well, it's just such a tremendous advantage for the teams with that bye too. To have you might not see DeGrom or Scherzer or a couple of these other guys at the top of the rotation, and you have your horse ready or your horse is ready. Man, I mean that's the advantage of being one of the top 4 seeds, I guess. It's wild, but if I were managing the team, I'm throwing my best guys regardless of the situation, and then we'll find a way. Because I think the Mets have some valuable arms that can still get the job done, but I don't know. Maybe another team decides to do something like that too, based on what happens in game 1. Or if you take a commanding lead, then you can get the guy out early. But that's also a difficult thing to do. If you have a 4-run lead, are you going to risk taking him out, say after 4 innings, to preserve him, and then somehow the team comes back, and now you're fucked without your guy on the mound. So I don't know.
But I do agree with you. These teams are in a bad spot.
They are.
The teams with a bye are sitting pretty. So
let's get some picks going. All right, I think we've got a fair enough idea of what's going on with a lot of these identities here. I'm if you go to the Barstool Sportsbook app, you're going to get some of this action. Check that out. Obviously, exclusives tab. We're going to have Hit Parade growing. We're going to have Bombs Away going. There's going to be tons of gambling content flowing through the Barstool Sportsbook app. So if you're in a legal state, be on top of that so that the odds are lined up. They're making sense. I've gone and compared and got a general idea because the odds will change by the time this gets posted. So let's just say generally this is kind of what my idea of where these prices will be by the time this is published for purposes of conversation. So let's say Cardinals are minus 130 and the Phillies are like plus 110 here. Cardinals minus 130. I'm taking the Phillies as an underdog.
That would be the play I would make as well. I think with that lineup, we haven't even really seen the best of Harper. I like the Phillies as well, plus the 110, even on the road.
The questions with the Cardinals starting pitching where they just don't know who's pitching 1, 2, or 3, and is Wainwright going to start? And I just think that's going to add up to where it's like Cardinals could blow them out. But I think that if we're looking for an advantage here, I think there's a little one there at the plus sign.
I like that too. I'm with you guys there. And with the concerns about the rotation, Wainwright is, potentially dealt with some dead arm, which could be an issue. I mean, he's not a high velocity guy anymore anyways. And I do love that lineup. I mean, they absolutely can mash. And with Harper's struggles, in September, I think he's going to come out, more ready than ever, and he's going to have a huge postseason. So I definitely like the Phillies as a dog as well.
Love it. Former Philly, too. Couple buddies on that team, too. I like that. Some insight.
Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily play favorites, but I like it. I mean, I like both teams. I like all the teams in here. But it's I think it's an easy one to go with. I really do. If you kind of consider, the rotation and the lineup for Philly, I'm with you guys on that.
Now, this next one makes me nervous. So it's like Mariners are around the plus 150-ish, and the Blue Jays are around the minus 175, minus 180. And the Blue Jays, to me, have obviously the more complete lineup, but I just love the Mariners and how gritty they are and throwing Luis Castillo out there game one and just like a team and a will to win and the best young player in baseball. I mean, come on. Best very young player in baseball, I should say. Don't want to offend anybody.
I think
the
Mariners
that big value.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Blue Jays are clearly better offensively. I like Manoah at home as well. What I'm curious to see is I'm assuming Robbie Ray going game 2, him pitching back in Toronto. But God, it's so hard to go against Luis Castillo with what he's capable of doing. And I mean, he's pitched in the postseason once. I think he's going to be juiced up like big time to pitch in that, and we get to see some young superstars playing the series. I'm going Seattle. I think Luis Castillo could potentially throw a shutout game 1.
I'll give you one, Carl, that jumped out to me. Not necessarily a side of the two teams. I'll give you the entertainment play. Over 2.5 games is minus 110. I think these teams are very similar. I see this one going 3, and at that point, you're right there. You're laying a little bit of juice, but I think over 2.5 games. Let's root for 3 entertaining games, and I'll cash my bet. I do see these. Like I said, these two teams are pesky. I could see back and forth leads. I see teams knowing they have to fight for their life. Blue Jays underachieving, Mariners the unsung story, like looking to get to Houston. Blue Jays looking to prove everybody wrong, get that World Series. There's gonna be a lot of pressure in these games. I see back and forth. I'm going over 2.5 games.
Rico, I love that. I absolutely think this series goes 3 games, without a doubt.
You got to just whisper that you love it because the spies will listen in, and the next thing you know, it's minus 115, minus 120. We got a lot of spies.
I like it a little bit.
Hey, yeah. Westy. We know you're watching.
Zach Gallen's strikeouts in April were like 3 and 4, and the next thing you know, we start doing the Zach Gallen parade. They're hitting 6 and 7 in July and August and September. So just watch out for the spies. I'll help you through it.
All right.
Okay, I do have one. Now that we've said this, you've kind of opened the door a little bit here, Rico. I do want to say, if those sound meters ever worked at the stadium, the crowd noise of like staying on your feet, if those ever actually worked and they could record the sound meters of how loud these places were, I would like to bet that the Rogers Center and the Blue Jays will have the loudest crowd in all of the playoffs for that first pitch. The Blue Jays are Canada's national baseball team. They're lunatics. They come together for playoff baseball like absolute psychopaths because the Maple Leafs have been letting down these people forever. They just need a hope, a shot of life, a something. And I think big home field advantage. But again, the value to me is back on the Mariners. Mets Padres. I know everybody's down on the Mets. I just can't imagine Scherzer loses a home series. So I will not be wagering on this. I will be taking Max Scherzer's strikeout totals over. I will be prop betting Max Scherzer's face off in his start in this game because this is exactly why you pay Max Scherzer all the money, I think. And now if he's coming out of the bullpen or it's later in the playoffs or whatever, but like his first taste when he comes out, he's just a bulldog. So I like all that.
Which way have we announced, though? Is it going DeGrom Scherzer or is it going Scherzer DeGrom?
I think it has to go Scherzer DeGrom. Colin, what do you think?
It's DeGrom. DeGrom Friday night.
I'll give you – that's why we don't score for DeGrom. And I love DeGrom. But I do think Scherzer is an all-time fuck you guy, fuck you fastballs, is a winner, won't let us down. I think the Mets go down 1-0. I think Scherzer win it. I'm on this one again, minus 107 over 2.5 games. Padres pitching worries me as well. This is going to be – and we're Mets – like, let's face it. The Mets never make anything easy. The only time the Mets made anything easy, sorry to rub it in, was that the NLCS when we waxed the Cubs, which was still, again, though, shocking to me. I didn't think we were going to run through that like we did. I think this one is torture. I think the Mets are always in entertaining playoff games. Even, going back, watching the VHS tapes of 86, those 16-inning games, that your dad would tell you stories about. The Mets are in wild, wild games over 2.5 here, minus 107. I think the Padres steal game 1. I think we're fighting for our life. And then who knows what happens in game 3.
Wow. You think you guys lose game 1?
I'm not saying
it's such a weird thing to me that they just don't score for DeGrom historically, and it's happened so many times and for years and years and years that you just can't deny it anymore. But it doesn't make sense to me. Maybe it's a sense of relaxation because we've got DeGrom on the mound and all we got to do is get 1 or 2, and it just doesn't happen. I don't know what it is, but I mean that guy should have 200 wins.
Well, the numbers back it up. So, I don't know, Colin, if you have that tweet offhand, but it started to surface. The highest percentage team or highest percentage money line, most profitable guy to fade in the MLB in the last 5 or 6 years is Jacob deGrom. It sounds insane, but it's Jacob deGrom because his price is so high and we just don't score for him. So I could see him throwing a gem. Everybody's going nuts into the 7th. It's 1-1, and we don't get it done.
I just do not like the matchup for the Padres offense against DeGrom. And I mean, you can say that for pretty much anybody he faces. But there's only a couple guys in that lineup, and they got a decent lineup. But DeGrom's not going to be fazed by any of these guys. I mean, Machado, you got to be careful with. The guy can do so many different things with the bat. I mean, Cronenworth is a nice bat. Obviously Juan Soto. But I mean, really, outside of that, I think he's going to pick these guys apart. I really do. I think he's going to pitch extremely well. I think the Mets are going to be, and you say chip on your shoulder. Everyone has it, but based on how the season ended and how they, kind of performed at the end against the Braves, having to go, I think 2-5 just against the Braves to win the division and not being able to do it. I think they come out, pissed off and ready to go. I think they win game 1, no problem.
Hey, I'm very much enjoying this Mets conversation, so much so that I kind of want to rope Colin in, and I have a special guest that I want to talk a lot of Mets about. Rico, if you got a minute, stick around. Let's do some kind of Mets roundtable. One last thing, though, before we do. I have been spending a lot of time the first portion of this episode talking about the Cleveland Guardians, so I just want to package that up real quick, make the pick. They're slight favorites over the Rays. I think it's probably going to end up around minus 115. I think it's a little bit higher now, and it's no disrespect to the Rays. The Rays are running Tyler Glasnow out there game 2, Shane McClanahan game 1, Raz game 3. Probably like the most dominant 1, 2, 3. If you just in a vacuum, in a box, whatever, probably the most dominant 1, 2, 3 you can put together in the Wildcard series round. But I've been saying it forever. I think the Cleveland Guardians are just impossible to beat. Cal Quantrill, game 3 if he has to, 44 starts at Progressive, 14-0 his career, has literally never hung a loss at home. That's a guy you're running out in a must-win game 3, please. So I'm just a big Guardians guy. I'm going to be following him, but that's my pick. That's my most dominant. That's my sexiest team I like out of these 8 because
Carl,
I do think they match up better. Yeah. So
let me give you one real quick that's more divisional, but I'm looking now at the World Series prices. Okay, Dodgers plus 315, Astros plus 385. Carl and Jake and Colin, you can kind of weigh in on this too. In terms of straight series, right? So the Astros obviously have the break, and I do think they got the tougher setup than the Yankees in terms of Guardians, Rays. I'd much rather play Guardians, Rays than I would Mariners or Blue Jays. But the Astros are going to be a favorite in that series, right? Like you think they'll probably get through with that home park and the pitching coming through. I put them as a big favorite in that divisional series. It would shock me if they lost in the divisional series. In the championship series, I do think they're better than the Yankees. I think we've seen it, what they've done. So to me, and obviously when you get there to the World Series, what would you set the line, or how many games do you think Dodgers-Astros go if it is chalk? So like my question is this. If I can get the Astros right now at plus 385, against the Dodgers, I think that's mispriced. And I know a lot has to go into it, but that's way too heavy. I think that's a dead even split.
That's a good point, Rico. I think it's a good point. And I think the Astros are the toughest matchup for their side of the bracket. I think they're a tougher matchup than because with how well the Braves and the Mets have played, you know what I mean? It's just in the Yankees with how thin they are in the pitching, as we talked about, question marks that they have. And listen, we're not saying these are the best teams in baseball. These are teams that have done amazing things all season long. It's just now you're coming down to a point where you have to pick one where you think you feel good about. And so how much better the Astros show up and they do it time and time and time and time and time again. You're telling me Verlander. Yeah. So
I mean, it's just rollover. Like against the Yankees, even if you think the Yankees are a little bit of a favorite, okay, so then the Astros series price should be 150. And again, it's progressive. Like you have to advance and advance and advance. But I'm now holding the Astros 385 through that series, and then we get to the Dodgers, and that's another even split, and I'm holding 385. I would go with the Astros plus 385 in terms of a World Series. It doesn't make a lot of sense when you start to break it down head-to-head against each of these teams.
Well said. I think that's a perfect bow for our gambling segment, Rico, and I would like you to come back on throughout the playoffs, and we'll just keep talking about odds and values and stuff. I think you've kind of laid a great foundation. We've obviously done a lot together on hot ice throughout the season, which is why I'm very comfortable talking MLB gambling. I know where your head's at. But at a higher level, there's some people listening to this that know I'm at my most comfortable in a snake draft room. Jake, you were on a snake draft.
Yeah, that was fun. We got to do that again.
Yeah. Rico and Clem, these two individuals here, are the two most heralded guests in snake draft history. I don't pick. These are like your children. You don't pick a favorite because they're just the absolute best guys in the world to sit down and chop it up with.
You got to pick a favorite.
I can't. Nope. Never in 1,000 years because Rico does all our weird stuff. Like just really weird stuff, and then Clem does the home run snacks and the cereals and the. I'm not picking one. Don't do it to me, Jake.
Okay, fine. Cooper's my favorite. Palmer's my second.
New edition of Podfathers, Jake Arrieta. Okay, so this segment means a lot to me because these two guys, Clem and obviously Rico, we've done a ton of work together over the years. Colin is joining us as well. Producer Colin has been with Starting Nine the entire season, grinding it out. We're finally here. And I kind of want to turn this into just like I have two of my favorite guys in the world, diehard Mets fans. We've got producer Colin here, who's just the biggest crazy lunatic Mets fan of all time. And I kind of want to open it up. Clem, welcome to the show. It's the longest introduction anyone's ever done. Clem, welcome to Starting Nine. How are you doing, brother?
I'm honored to be here, first and foremost. Nice to meet you, Jake. And could be better, but could be worse. Could be worse. I think everyone forgets just how much worse it could be. This man on my shirt right here, for the people watching on YouTube, this man is here for the long term, and things are only going to get better. I know Jake knows. Jake is telling me we're signing everybody. Every time there's a clip, Jake tells me we're signing someone. So everything's going to be all right, boys. Uncle Stevie's here. 101 wins as of the recording of this podcast, and we have a game on Friday night. Meaningful games in October. We were begging for meaningful games in September with the old bozos in charge. Now we're playing meaningful games in October, and hey, maybe we go into November. We'll see. But we have a chance. We're in the tournament, and that's all you can ask as a baseball fan.
It's a perfect segue. Jake, I'm interested if you know this. Carl already knows the answer, and Colin definitely knows the answer. How many times have the Mets made the playoffs in consecutive seasons in their franchise history?
Wow. Let's say 5.
It's 1.5. Because it's technically 2, but the 2016 was a one-game playoff, so I don't count that. It's one time, 99 and 2000. They have that 06 dominating team never made it. 07, 08, 15 never made it back. Like I said it too, Clem. Like you just want to be in the race. We're building something now. Like we're supposed to be World Series. It is what it is. But like you're in the dance. You can only go home with the prom queen if you go to the dance. It's good we're in the dance.
One more win in Atlanta right now, and we're just having a ball right now. We're talking, who do we want more, the Phillies or the Cardinals? And we're just having, an absolute blast. Instead, we're just like, Oh shit! And we're getting clowned. We'll call it what it is. Everyone's seen the memes. We see the Braves fans. The Braves fans have been louder with the Mets this year than they were during their entire World Series run. It's actually kind of impressive. That's just pure hatred fueling them. It fuels us as well. Those guys have ruined my life, me and Rico, since the '90s. You know, Greg Maddux getting calls 6 feet outside the zone. We're not going to go back to those days though. And like you said it perfect, Carl. Colin. He's like a babyface, just sweetheart of a guy, quiet guy. You talk Mets with him, and you start to get to know him. He's the sickest dude on this panel right now. And listen, every person on this panel has problems. And Colin's the sickest of us all.
I'm like 5th down in the batting order of craziness on the streams. That says something. Like, the fucking cops should be at these streams of, like, all the wackos. Wait till Phil and Franco, the whole fucking thing is going to be insane. So,
yeah. All right, so let me ask you guys this. What would you guys like to see game one from the Mets offense, knowing DeGrom would be on the mound? And I guess I'm going to start with like Jake. Assume you're Jacob DeGrom, and you know, like, hey, this is a good team. But would you be in your head be like, man, my lineup doesn't score for me?
No, I really wouldn't. And like in these kind of games, you can feel really good about it when you have guys on the mound that have huge strikeout numbers. And that's why, you know, whether it's DeGrom going game one, and which it is, DeGrom game one, Scherzer game two, guys with tremendously high strikeout numbers. But then on the flip side, you're going to have, I'm assuming Darvish is going game one. Is that correct? So Yu's going to go game one. And this is why I think as a Mets fan, you can feel pretty good about this. Darvish really dislikes to pitch with his fastball. If he doesn't like the way it feels early on in the first inning, you're going to see slider after slider after slider. And you have a lineup in the Mets who can really handle that. And they can kind of wait him out and kind of expose him if he's not feeling good about his fastball. So use a wild card. He's a wild card. If he's on, you know, he can be pretty good. But I still think the matchup bodes well for the Mets. And that's something that we hadn't really mentioned before. And just in my experience with Darvish, if he's off his game in the first inning, he's gonna be putting guys on base. He's gonna be he's gonna be throwing 7 or 8 different types of breaking balls. And I think that works out really well for the Mets. So with DeGrom on the mound, huge strikeout numbers. I don't think he's going to really care about, you know, how his lineup is constructed. I think he's just going to be worried about one thing, and that's just, you know, dicing guys up.
It's funny you say that too, Jake, because the last 2 games Jake pitched that were, you know, pretty. The Braves game was huge, obviously, but even the Oakland game the week before, where he kind of got hit hard, he actually got runs in the first inning, and I'm convinced he just doesn't. And I jokingly say, Jacob DeGrom's like, "Wait, you guys are going to start scoring for me now? It's been 5 years since you actually put runs on the board for me," and it's almost like he's not used to having a safety net there. So I've kind of joked about it. It would be nice to get Jacob a couple, not just for the players, but for the fans, because you could tell we're all on edge right now. We've tried to, like, this summer, we've tried to, you know, feel ourselves, get back into the mix, but you've just seen what has happened the last week, so we're all kind of tightening up. And 2 Cubs guys, obviously, we're kind of where you guys were. You know, I don't know if it's 2015, if this is our 2016, I hope it is, but there has to be growth from everyone, the players and the fans, where it's like, you guys just have to stop being like doom and gloom, who's the next Bartman kind of a thing. I apologize for using the B word on the pod, Carl, but
totally fine. We're at, jurisdiction does not apply here. We're in international waters, Clem.
Thank you.
Well, okay. What about this, Colin? You've been sitting here listening to this the whole time, and I know that, like we said at the top, like, you're the biggest psychopath about it. But what people probably don't know is, of all your fandom, of everything you love most about the Mets, it can be summed up with one person, and it is Jacob DeGrom. Did you want to see him get game one, or did you want to see Scherzer get game one?
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to see Jake on the mound. Obviously, like, he's our go-to guy, but I really want Scherzer Friday night. And like Rico was talking about earlier in the show, my ideal is Scherzer Friday night, win that game, throw Bassett game 2, and save Jake for the first game of the NLCS or NLDS. So, I mean, like, as much as I love throwing Jake out there, I just think that Scherzer's going to give you that first game where he's going to knock everyone out. Like, he's a madman. And with Jake, he's just so cool, calm, and collected. And I love that about him. You know, he's the simple man, but, like, once you can see a little irritation if Jake gives up like a run or 2 or something like that, and you just don't get that from Max. Like, so I want first night, Friday night, Hopefully they're in the black uniforms. Like, I just want Max Scherzer out there.
You don't think there's irritation from Scherzer when he gives up a run?
No, there is, but you can see that, like, Max then is like, okay, I'm going to make you my motherfucking bitch right now after that happens. Jake, you can see the frustration a little bit, and that worries me, especially after the last 2 starts. Like, I don't want you, Darvish, to come in here like he has the last 2 starts that he's pitched against us, shut us out, and we don't give anything for Jake. So I don't know. Like, honestly, I'm not going to be mad about whoever gets thrown out there. You know, they're 2 aces, but my ideal is Scherzer, win that game, throw Bassett game 2, and save Jake for game 1.
Well, that is something that I didn't even mention, and you kind of alluded to it. I believe that Darvish's record against the Mets is like he's like 7-0 or something like that. So that's
his last two starts.
That's rough.
Yeah. He's got Mets 1 run in 14 innings pitched in his last 2 starts. So not good.
Hey, it could fall apart though early on. You never know. Hey, it's a big game.
I agree with Colin. I'd put Scherzer out game 1, but the interesting element of it too, and I don't know how you approach this, is like we are recruiting or like pursuing DeGrom to stick with us this offseason. So what does that say? Biggest game of the year, we don't put him out game 1. Now, I guess you could kind of say tough shit, like if Scherzer's our best option to win, but we do want DeGrom to re-sign, right? So it's navigating that tightrope of shit too. So it's weird. My question, I guess, to anybody is like, if DeGrom does have his stuff, how many runs do you think we need? Like, what do we need to see? I say it's 3. If the Mets get 3 runs, DeGrom goes 7. We could throw one of us out there for the 8th to just hopefully get some fucking ground balls, and then go to Diaz.
Yeah,
in 9.
I mean, yeah, DeGrom has his stuff. 3 is almost, you're just doing it, you're hoping that 8th inning guy doesn't fuck it up because then you're going to Diaz in the 9th. I don't know how much you guys have been following, but it's with the blister. I don't know how that blister's looking. Jake, I imagine you had to deal with blisters throughout your time. That's kind of what we're worried about, is like DeGrom, an extra day or so might give the blister an extra day to heal, or if, God willing, it's tough if you lose that game 2 with Bassett, and then DeGrom's pitching game 3, and now you've put yourself in an elimination phase. But the blister kind of weighs on my mind. Is that something? It sounds like it ripped off, so I think it's in the healing phase now. That was DeGrom's start was what, Saturday? That was Saturday. DeGrom's start was Friday, so it would be about a week. It would be a week now for a blister to have torn off, and now it's in the healing phase.
Now, has he had an issue with this for several starts? The blister.
I think they said the Oakland start is when it started, so it's 2 starts now.
Well, there's a lot of things they can do, and Carl and I talked about this in our last show, I believe, because Gosman has had issues with the blister as well, and people don't understand how difficult that can be to pitch with, and it might seem like, oh, this guy's a pussy, he can't pitch with a blister, but if DeGrom's not able to put pressure on that middle finger to really tighten up that slider, that 92, 94 mile an hour slider that he has, and he might not have the ability to command it as well. So that is a bigger deal than people, ever fail to mention, just because you lose feel, you lose that grip pressure, which can affect your command and your velocity. So it's a huge deal. But they said he's full go, right? I mean, he's 100%. And if that's the case, we shouldn't have anything to worry about. We'll see what the weather's like. If it's
beautiful,
okay. Well, if it's beautiful, then we're good. If it's super dry, super cold, but they've got a bunch of acrylic stuff, and they could put super glue on it to kind of keep the pressure down. He should be fine. But yeah, man, you can't understate how ineffective you could potentially be with a big blister situation.
This makes me feel better about the last couple Jake starts, because this is how it happens with us Mets fans. We're doom and gloom as always, even the most optimistic of us. But then when you see a guy like Jake who has, it's so weird saying Jake to an actual Jake, and then I'm talking about Jacob. I apologize for the confusion.
It's all good.
But seeing every time DeGrom doesn't, people get scared when they're hitting weak ground balls. They're like, why isn't he striking out 12 anymore? What's going on? So we always get scared if there's something else structurally up with him. A blister feels like almost best case scenario, but it still is a real problem here. So it is a great question, though, the Max, Jake, and then if you get that game 1, do you gamble with Bassett in game 2? And Bassett's no slouch.
When you guys mentioned, sorry, Carl, but y'all mentioned would DeGrom, does it bother him if Scherzer game 1. I mean, if there's anybody that would start in front of you, I mean, Max isn't a bad guy to have. You know what I mean? Obviously a Hall of Famer, and one of the biggest big game pitchers that we've seen in our lifetime. So I would lean towards going Max game 1. But man, DeGrom's one of the best to ever do it. So it's hard to say you're not comfortable with that decision. So
what's a big lineup change with Marte out? So where does that hurt the most, or where do the pieces move around then?
Just a guy who goes and gets a fucking hit. Like, he's a guy who just goes and gets it. We don't have a lot. Like,
and it's still a bag.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's a
and
great
he's got
fielder.
a cannon in right field.
Great fielder. Yeah, I mean, he's just a guy. He sets the tone. Like, it sets up when you talk about, like, for a while, the Mets lineups, in the bad years, like, there were 3 guys with batting averages lower than blood alcohol contents for the fucking weekend. Like, that's what it was. So when you have a setup of, like, Nimmo, Marte, Lindor, Alonso, and then obviously like McNeil or Vogelback some power. Like, all right, we got 5 real bats here ready to go. Like, taking Marte out of that is tough because he was my favorite guy this season. I loved him, and it's crazy. He can't grip a bat. He can't grip a ball. It's like, shit. This was a centerpiece of what we had. So it just to answer your question, like, a lot. But it's just a reliable guy. It was a reliable guy that goes and gets hits, gives you some power. You can't really pitch around him. To your point, Jake, he can get on base, steal a base. Like, it's just a real tone setter in the lineup. To have him out hurts a lot, Carl.
Well, hey, I know it's a broken finger. In that, being able to hold a bat, very difficult, especially trying to make contact. But do you think would be completely out of the question to see him potentially get an AB?
I think Buck's trying to hold out as long as possible. He's still hoping for like the 23rd hour or 25th hour. I'm all good, skip, ready to go. I know he just posted on Instagram a picture of him, so all Mets fans are trying to figure out what kind of cryptic stuff's going on. Good to be back in the playoffs, boys, isn't it? We're looking at Instagram stories and trying to figure out what it means, man. Welcome back to the suck. It's the absolute worst. But Rico, you said it perfect, man. He was the bridge. Nimmo is the leadoff guy. He grinds the hell out of every at bat, and then you have Pete and Francisco behind him. And he was the guy that even if he like grounded it like a ground out, you weren't going to double him up. So it's like this inning's going to keep rolling now. And then he could also obviously get a hit, doubles, home runs, and all that stuff. And now we're just 2 runs, 3 runs a game feels like are like ceiling without him. It's crazy.
Well, especially when you got Tyler Nyquin in right field. Like, come on, they're not even comparable.
Yeah.
I have just a couple other things here on my list. I'm interested in how Big Daddy Danny Vogelbach's doing.
The gold has worn off the slipper, as they say. Like, I still like the guy, but there may have been a man who I lived under his roof. I don't want to rat him out, but I lived under his roof for a long period of time. Called him Dad. I don't want to give any hints. Called him Dad. He may have changed his nickname to Vogel Beast, which I think is very mean, but that's the way we're going. Like, it's Vogel Beast, and all the fun and all the T-shirts have worn off. Unless this guy goes on a tear in the playoffs, you saw it with his average. His average is really down. It's hit or miss. It's not great. I'm rooting for the guy. I think he's a lot of fun, but
not 255
average
isn't down that bad.
I mean, he's 15. Listen, since September 1st, he's got a 15 to walk, 15 strikeout rate. Oh, Rico.
He doesn't swing at bad pitches. I'll give him that. But
Clem?
He had a hammy injury, and you always think like running and stuff, but a guy like that with a hammy too, it's just I can't believe we didn't just throw him on the IL for a bit and just let him rest up. But he hit that home run against the Braves, and someone who showed up in that series offensively, I have a hard time criticizing them because basically nobody else showed up. So we showed up on Sunday, got that big home run, and it's like, all right, here we go, boys, and then the entire bottom fell out. Tell me that guy isn't built for an October moment. Tell me, you guys saw what Schwarber did, right? Just a big boy looking to hit home runs. I'm going to put one on, it won't be in Citi Field. Put one in the Apple or something like that. Make a memory for all of us here right now.
Yeah, off the steak sandwich place out in center field. By the way, go get yourself a $30 steak sandwich. Those filet mignon sandwiches at Citi Field cannot be touched.
Baby.
I think there's only one station, too. You really got to work your way for it, but it's worth the wait.
Clem, is it too much to make one of the snipers on the roof duck, like move, think it's coming at him? Like let's just hit a moonshot.
Yeah, let's do it, Danny. Fuck.
You guys casually said 8th inning guy. We talked about that with the DeGrom start. Is it Ottavino? Who is it? Who's your 8th inning guy?
It'd be Arrieta if you're asking me, but I know that's not possible.
Yeah, what are we getting at right now, Jake? What are we looking at on the gun right now? If you went outside,
right now, no throwing program, probably 90, 91.
I'll take that.
Take it.
I don't give a shit. I'll take that.
Come on. Hey, you guys y'all should be in good hands. I mean, well, maybe not. I don't know. Does Ottavino scare you guys?
Ottavino scares me when there's a lefty up because the way everything breaks, it's going right into the lefty, and obviously if you put him in and then a pinch hitter comes up, I have to look at the Padres. I am very happy, thrilled that I don't have to deal with Eric Hosmer. That was the last. Obviously, you don't want to deal with Juan Soto. He killed us back when he was on the Nationals, even when they were bad. But Eric Hosmer, it's 2015 Black Magic Royals voodoo coming on us. So you're dealing with the Machados and you're dealing with the Sotos of the world. But Eric Hosmer, I could already tell you, he would have won one of these games in the 8th inning. Ottavino has actually been pretty damn good, and Drew Smith, who was actually really good for us, got hurt. He was pitching. You know when those guys, you guys know all the time. When the reliever, he's pitching hurt, everything's just not there. He's lost a couple miles per hour, and he's just getting hit. Comes back and looks like the old guy again. So I think he could kind of be the 1B to Ottavino's 1A. And then Lugo, if the curveballs, you'll know if Lugo's your guy just on his first curveball. You're like, that's good Lugo or bad Lugo. So 3 guys to get to a nuclear weapon who can also be used in the 8th, you'll take it. And Buck has already shown that he'll throw Diaz earlier in the game in the 8th or something if he needs to get the heart of the lineup out, and then we'll figure out the 9th inning if we are lucky enough to get there.
Good luck.
Thank you.
I do like your manager over 162, but I don't think he's the best postseason manager. I think you can make an argument where Buck Showalter is right there with Tito for 162. Kevin Cash has been outstanding since the Rays have hired him. I would say, he's kind of on that cusp in the second group of guys. But to me, it's like, you got Tito, you got Showalter, you got 2 real big heavyweights. I think Showalter's a little bit better over 162, but maybe I'm a little bit haunted by I'm impacted by the not bringing in Zach Britton against the Blue Jays, which forever will be one of the just most mind-boggling decisions of all time. So hopefully you guys don't, if it goes poorly, hopefully you're not at the end of the series point your finger at Buck, because that's like the last thing you guys all expect right now.
Well, he came in no, listen, he's been great, but you got to remember, okay, there was an open base in Jeter's final at bat.
Oh God, you did it now! You did it now, Carl.
And Buck worked for the Yankees.
Do it.
You operate game 162 or game 160, whatever that was, like you do game 1. So I was down on Buck, so I'm looking to put the blame on him. He should have walked Jeter. I don't care that he played for the Yankees. I don't care that you played for the Yankees. You should have walked him. But to your point, without having any fun, yeah, Buck he set the tone from day one. He was looking for a fight. He's made these guys winners. He's tough. He's a baseball lifer. I like the guy we have at the helm. I really do.
Rico's your dad, the dad that remembers the thing, like the slight in 3rd grade in the travel basketball team. That's why I love him. That's the kind of dog I want going to a bunker with. It's going to take all of it. It's going to take me. It's going to take Rico, KFC, Meek Phil. It's all of us against the dark side. We have the tank on the other side of this. Portnoy is going to be involved, so he's going to be, stirring shit up. So it's going to be an absolute bloodbath. So I want guys talking about Derek Jeter's last home at bat and holding grudges. And I have big Bob Melvin on the other side. I don't know anything about Bob Melvin. I don't know. You guys tell me. Should I be worried about Bob Melvin? I know Buck. Yeah. He knows the rule book better than the umpires. He was teaching them rules all season. Like, no, guys, this is how it goes. This is the order of things. It was one of the most incredible things, and he's great at replays, which is something that matters in the modern game. I have no idea what to expect out of Bob Melvin.
Bob Melvin was a legend with the Athletics, I thought, but
I watched Moneyball.
I would have taken him as the Mets manager. I was looking for him to come over to New York this past year.
Every time I watch A's managers, though, I watch Moneyball. I saw the thing with Art Howe back in the day. I feel like that's a ship that is steered from the top, So that's why I kind of am like, yeah, we might be all right here. I love Buck. Just really nervous. And I got to see what Pete does in the playoffs. Pete, McNeil, all these guys, they're new to the playoffs. Lindor obviously has some skins on the wall and a couple of other guys, but there's not a ton. That's something that kind of scares me, how we didn't show up in Atlanta in the biggest games of the year.
Last question, confidence interval 1 to 10. I'm going to start with you, Colin. To a decimal point. Pizza, score me.
I'm going to say 8.2. I'm very confident in the Mets this series. I think we're going to use the motivation for losing the division, and I think we're going to go out there. I think we're going to win it in 2 games.
Just because we do need a miracle, I'm going to go 6.9. Because that is a very good number to the Mets.
I like that, Rico. I was going to say 8.75 and get really, scientific on you guys with the double decimal, but we're going to go 8.6, play off for Rico's 6.9. We're going to keep it going good. And Buck said it. He goes, these guys are experiencing pain. They want to take their pain out on someone else. That's the kind of dumb shit that gets a fan base all riled up. So Citi Field's going to be a madhouse, too. You can't discount that. Jake, pitching on the road in a playoff game with a madhouse like a bunch of New Yorkers yelling at you, does that make a difference for base? Because I know everyone says, I'm focused in, I'm dialed in. But if things start getting a little up, we hit you, we got a 2-0 lead, and Jake's on the bump, is that something that can affect the team, for the rest of the game?
No, it definitely can affect you. But I think for me personally, it didn't matter if I was at home or on the road. The crowd noise kind of fueled me in a positive way. And I think a lot of the best players that can perform in October or on the biggest stage are the same way. But it has an effect. It absolutely does have an effect. If I have to give, I'm not a diehard Mets fan like you guys, but I have to give a confidence rating, I'm gonna go. I like in the eights too. I'll go 8.5 because of Scherzer and DeGrom, and I like the lineup. It sucks to have Marte out of it, but I think you guys definitely have enough to get through this series. My concern would be for the following series being matched up against the Dodgers. So 8.5. I love the starting pitching. I think that you struggles in game 1, and I think you guys are good to go.
That, you said it, Jake, the perfect way to put it. The thing that hurts most about this is it did feel like a World Series run was just so much easier, having that bye and then facing a wild card team instead of going wild card straight to the Dodgers, even though the Braves have been pretty much the Dodgers in terms of record ever since June 1st. So, it hurts to burn your guys early, but this is the fucking...
It does hurt. It does hurt, but it'd be that much sweeter to win the whole thing, having to go through that wild card and then getting past the Dodgers.
I'm going to throw an 8-4 out there just because the Padres, robbed the Cubs at 84, and I'm still waiting for retribution and some payback on that. Cubs blew a lead, believe that. All right, in a world, or I should say in a company full of lunatics, this could be one of my favorite assortments of lunatics for a particular team. You guys stand out. I appreciate you guys coming on Starting 9, doing a Mets Roundtable with us. Hopefully we'll get to talk more and you guys win this weekend series, and we'll, Rico again with the odds. And Clem, thank you very much for your perspective on this team, and you guys are the best, man.
Yeah, boys. Appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
All right, so those are our Mets fans. What do you think, Jake?
Oh, they're great. They're passionate. Just kind of more of the same that we get from Colin. I absolutely love it, and it's it sucks because I was looking at it. It's like they went 2-5 against the Braves at the end, and all they had to do was go 2-5 to win the division, and I think they only won one of those games, or maybe they lost all of them. But hey, huge chip on the shoulder. They've got 2 of the best guys to ever do it, on the bump for them. It's at home, game 1. I like their chances. I like Yu Darvish a lot. I really do. I mean, he's unbelievable, and watching him kind of do his thing, he's been great for a long time. But he can be a little shaky early on in the game. So I think that bodes well for the Mets.
Yeah, everything you say about him, spot on. It is though. If he is feeling it, then
if he's on, man, he's going to be hard to beat. But so is the guy on the mound for the Mets.
Right. And then just going around, I just want to reiterate, really like the Cleveland Guardians to get out of it.
I do too, man. They were 28 or 21-8 down the stretch in their division, even though that division isn't a very strong division. And then Tampa on the road was 35-45. You know, but the AL East, probably the best division in baseball. And the arms that Tampa has, scary arms. McClanahan, and you got Glasnow back, and Rasmussen, and Guardians have Bieber. That's going to be a nice series. It's going to be a nice series, and we talked a lot about, you know, obviously the top seeds. You know, with Houston, I think they're easily the best team in the American League. I think with you know, the struggles in Yankees pitching and kind of the inconsistencies in their lineup, I think they have the easiest road to the World Series. I really do. I would like to see, as much as I would like to see, you know, the Mariners kind of have success in the postseason. I don't know if I see it. I just don't know if I see it. And Astros are just so tough, such a tough, experienced ball club. I mean, they got Verlander back. Almost threw another no-hitter.
Yeah, as discussed.
Just wild. Just wild.
I should say too, I know everybody keeps talking about how MLB playoffs are different this year, and it is different, but it's really just different for the format and where we're at now, because come Sunday night, we're back on the 5-game DS, 7-game CS, 7-game World Series schedule. You're gonna have your club. So to me, it's like the differences in all the hoopla and all the stuff and all the dramas leading up to really just the Friday, Saturday, Sunday 3-game series. It would be so delightful if 3 or all 4 went into Sunday, because that Sunday would just be one of the great. I mean, I know how much people talk about the love for March Madness in the opening weekend, and obviously it's great stuff. I'm not a diehard for college basketball. I like sitting around with the boys and throwing money on it. But this is like this. This is like a freaking potpourri of games.
Well,
you know
what? You know what I wish, man. I wish that they would have given a little bit more time in between the Wildcard series and the DS, so you could have the best possible matchups. And I know that, like, that's part of the advantage of you know, of being one of the top seeds and getting the bye, but you still have the advantage. You don't have to play that wild card series. You know, I mean, do you agree with that? Wouldn't you like to see maybe two more days in between? So, but then, like, the teams got the bye. Well, like, no, that's kind of part of it. But I want to see the best guys matched up with the other best guys, you know, to start every series. And it's still an advantage not to have to play in that wild card. You know what I mean?
You're not going to see relievers get thrown 4 out of 5 days, I don't think. Right? You're not going to see a reliever come in game 1, game 2, game 3, take a day off, come in game 1 of the NLDS, come in game 2.
Probably not. I mean, you'll probably have a couple guys that lobby in the manager's office to put them out there in that situation, because, you know, this is – you play all season to get to this point. You're going to do whatever the hell you have to win. Like, you know, I pitched Game 6 of the World Series, and I told Joe, like, I'll be in the pen Game 7 if I'm needed. So guys will be willing to do so. Will it happen? Probably not.
Yeah. We'll see. We're excited. Go watch our stream. It's going to be out on Friday. Details announced. We don't want to miss you guys on that. And we'll be talking soon. There's going to be a ton of shit coming. We're going to be talking literally baseball all day tomorrow, live. I'm more excited for that than anything else, because I know I don't think people understand just how much you know and I know about watching baseball, and from completely different angles. So
yeah, and it's just, I mean, October is just great, and it's starting to cool off here in Austin, and it just kind of reminds me of, you know, playing in the postseason or playing in those, you know, the latter weeks of the season where it starts to get cold. You know, everyone in the stands is in their jackets, and yeah, it's it feels like, well, not only feels like, it is the most exciting time of year. And I just keep looking at this bracket, and I'm just like, fuck, I can't wait to watch these games. There's some, man, again, like, I just hate that there's not more time in between Wildcard and the DS. I'm not a huge fan of that.
We'll get Rob's here. Rob's here. This is Starting Nine. Go follow our stuff. Subscribe to the shit. Share the show. We're going to be back here, next week. Be back here.
Yes, sir.
It's that time. All right, boys.
Peace.